Very glad to have you back. Today, we are talking about trucking and recovery, tips, stories, and insights. So, I want to welcome you to the live stream. I'm Jamie, also known as J Road Trucker, and I've been in the trucking industry for 7 years now, and actually my whole life because I'm a third generation trucker. I've had uncles that were truck drivers. I have cousins that are still truck drivers. I had cousins that own their own trucking companies. And even when I wasn't in trucking, trucking was all around me. And the same thing with recovery. So I've been through the ringer and back with addiction, including 6 times in prison, 5 different prison numbers, 2 CBCFs, 4 halfway houses, more county jails than I care to remember, several IOPs, several AODs, in and out of 12-step programs for about 3 decades now, and currently in recovery now. Very much clean and sober by the grace of God. I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ who struggles with addiction and mental health. A brief overview of today's topic. We're going to talk about the trucking industry and recovery because recently I shared on social media a chip that I got from Celebrate Recovery, and a fellow trucker made a comment that I thought was pretty judgmental and definitely controversial. There was some truth to the comment, and there was also some rigidity to the comment. So the comment was, hopefully you're not one of those truckers that give truckers a bad name. And my response was, well, hopefully you're not one of those people that give people a bad name. And also, that's a weird way to say congratulations, right? So I'm not sure how being in recovery provoked an assumption that I was actively in addiction and driving a truck. I don't know how that correlation was made. Very strange. So it is controversial, right? So along with trucking, hi Zoe and Brock, how are you doing? Britt, I'm from Ohio. I'm currently coming through Pittsburgh. I just delivered in Cheswick, PA, and Irwin, PA. I'm on my way to Dover, Ohio for my third stop delivery, and then I'll be going to pick up my backhaul. It's snowing at your house for real. Well, where are you located, Charlie? It's not snowing here in Pittsburgh, but it is freezing. It is 16 degrees according to the thermometer on my truck, and it is probably even colder than that with the wind chill, I would say. And hey, Troy Smith, how are you doing? My uncle taught me how to kiss when I was 14. Well, I don't know. That's kind of weird, unless your uncle was 14, and it was mutual. I'm not here to judge. If you got something you want to get off your chest, then I'm more than willing to listen. I've experienced sexual assault when I was younger. Actually, I was about 14, and it was somebody that was very close to me, and that kept me sick for a very long time. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because there are, I think it's 7 out of 10 men that have been sexually assaulted or abused as children struggle with addiction, and it's even higher for women. It's like 8 out of 10 for women that have been sexually assaulted during their childhood struggle with addiction. So there is a direct correlation there. Yes, I'm in Pittsburgh. You're in Wisconsin. I haven't been up to Wisconsin for a while. We hauled. There's a real big um, brewery up there. I mean, you guys got all kinds of breweries. I think we were in Milwaukee. We hauled Coors out of there. Very heavy load. Waited forever to get loaded, but beautiful up there. Traffic sucks. I didn't get up there often. We've been up there. My wife and I were up there when we were team driving back in 2020, 2021. And now I stay more regional, so I run within like a 500-mile radius. Favorite NFL team, Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. What's up, Kansas? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you're a Favre fan, a Green Bay Packer. I know y'all was salty to lose Aaron Rodgers. Hey, but man, Jordan figured you were the Packers. Did you know the Green Bay Packers are the only NFL team that's publicly owned? So you can go on the stock market and buy Green Bay Packers stock, which is essentially ownership in the franchise. I don't hate the Packers. We have their coach, but I'm not sure that he's done us a whole lot of good. But he used to beat the crap out of us when he was with the Packers, and quite a few times on more than one occasion, we were spoiled in the playoffs. Cowboys suck. Come on, man. Really? That's how you feel? You gonna disrespect the Cowboys like that? Nah, they did suck this year, but NFC East, boom, we won it. They won the Super Bowl. The Eagles, and look, Washington made it to the playoffs, pretty deep in the playoffs. I tell you what, that Jaden Daniels is a force to be reckoned with. And what about Saquon? Why would the Giants trade Saquon Barkley? Why would the Giants trade Saquon Barkley in the same division? They know that Philadelphia is going to beat the brakes off of them for the foreseeable future twice a year. That's 2 losses a year that they just gave themselves by making that stupid trade. Not to mention all the problems they caused for the Cowboys and the Redskins by doing that. Because when you lose in your own franchise, that's like a double loss. You lost the game, and that's one less win that you have in your division, so it makes it that much harder to get a divisional title. So everybody knows that you don't trade within the franchise. Not Saquon Barkley's. I mean, if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have won that Super Bowl. Come on, man. I mean, yeah, they've been tough, but they've been inconsistent. But very impressive win. Probably one of the most well-rounded teams in the NFL. But the problem is, Packers beat Cowboys. Yeah, ain't no doubt. Packers beat Cowboys all the time in the divisional round. They kick us out of the daggone playoffs. I can't tell you how many times we've been kicked out of playoffs by the Packers. So, I thought when we got y'all's coach that we might have a little better shot, but doesn't appear to have worked out that way. But Dak got hurt and our season was shot. We need a better defense, and we need a better. I hate to say it, but Zeke's not what he used to be. And I think we kind of missed the window there when we first drafted Zeke and Dak way back when. man, we were tough, and then we get into the playoffs. We couldn't win a playoff game to save our lives. Did you know that Elon Musk almost bought the Packers? I didn't know that. That'd probably be a good investment. Look at what's his face that owns the Dallas Mavericks from Shark Tank. Um, dang, I can't think of it. Oh, Mark Cuban, Dallas Mavericks. So I mean, I don't think NFTs are bad investments. Look at what Jerry Jones has done with the Cowboys. That franchise was worth like I don't know in the millions, but since he's got it, it's worth like 4.4 billion. I mean, it's just insane what he's done, which is why I don't know if we'll win a Super Bowl as long as Jerry's running the show because he's making money. That dude's a businessman. He's selling tickets, he's selling merch, he's making money. You don't have to win a Super Bowl. You know what happens when you win a Super Bowl? Your whole team gets dismantled. Watch what happens to Philadelphia next year. Look what happened to Kansas City. I mean, they lost some good talent. And granted, they still have some good talent, but one, two players, all-star players, can't make a team. But they made a deep run. I was impressed. Yep, Mark Cuban. Thank you. It's like, yeah, right there. That's what happens when you work 16, 18 hours a day. You start losing your mental. Stay away. Yeah, I'm awake. Don't worry about that. It's weird that most people are like, well, I couldn't drive a semi because I'd fall asleep. Nah, because you know what you're hauling back there and you know what's going to happen if you do. Like, I ain't trying to kill nobody out here. I definitely ain't trying to kill myself, y'all. My truck brand, I got an international 2019 International LT. I can get fired for this. Well, I'm allowed to talk on my headset. So what's the difference if I'm recording and driving, or if I'm talking on the phone and driving? It's not illegal. Um, I'm a owner operator, so who's gonna fire me? Am I gonna fire myself? A company I'm leased on to, my contract doesn't say nothing about this. So until somebody tells me to stop, um, which I'm working towards independent owner operator anyway. So this is actually part of my business model, believe it or not. And me looking at the GPS when I'm driving down the road or checking my mirrors. Or now, have you seen the trucks that don't have mirrors? They don't have side mirrors. They got cameras and they got screens inside the cab. So what's the difference in me looking at a camera screen to check my mirrors or looking right here or looking right there or looking right there? You know, if I look at my GPS, is that illegal? If I look at my camera mirror, is that illegal? If I look at my dash camera monitor, can I get fired for that? I don't know. Maybe controversial, but I don't think it's illegal. I think we got an argument there. Squirrel Hill, man, I'm familiar with this area. Oh, that's a freaking turning lane. I got to get back over here. Excuse my French. So today's episode, we're going to talk about recovery and trucking because it is football and whatever else y'all want to talk about. Man, I don't know. I think Dak's pretty good. You know, he's not Patrick Mahomes. We know that. He's not Jalen Hurts, but he's pretty good. He's probably top 8 quarterback. Which, if you surround him with better components, I mean, if you don't have consistency at the offensive line, if you can't win in the trenches, which is what they proved, look what Philly did to that offensive line. They made Patrick Mahomes look like Vinny Testaverde at the end of his career. If I probably just aged myself there, but man, once they knew they could blow up that line, it was OVA, y'all. There was no hope for Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City once they figured out that they could blow up that line. It was over with for them. And that's exactly what happened. Like, if you can't win in them trenches, you just can't win. And now, I mean, they did they proved right, they proved that they could win one score games in the clinch, but what, 6 games they won in the fourth quarter by less than one score or less. Kansas City did, because they have all-star elite players, not because they had a really good team. Now, granted, that got them to the Super Bowl, which was very impressive. But because they didn't have the whole team like Philly had, that cohesiveness, they couldn't win the Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, they got demolished, and there would have been much better games had they not made it there, because I can think of quite a few teams that would have gave us a much better show for the Super Bowl. If I'd have paid $4 grand for one of them tickets, I'd have wanted my money back, man. That's crazy. They just once they figured out they could blow up that. So the same thing with Dak. Like, if we can't protect him, he's never gonna be an elite quarterback. When we did our best was when we controlled the game clock and kept our defense off the field by running the ball. Smash mouth football. Once they started trying to outscore teams, when we got Amari Cooper and we were the top offense in the NFL, but we still lost games because the Cowboys had never been that pass first type of team, and they tried to do that with Dak, and we're finding out that that's not going to work. Yeah, he's. I wouldn't argue that he's overpaid, that he's not overpaid. I wouldn't definitely not argue that, because he is overpaid. But I think Dak still got some good years in him. P Diddy, why P Diddy? He can't play. P Diddy might never get out, man. He needs God. So back to the agenda. So there are. It's important that we understand, right, that recovery in trucking, or addiction in trucking. So trucking's like one of these industries where it's like a lifestyle, man. So you've heard of, everybody's heard of lot lizards, and there's literally CB code for how to find drugs when you're on the road, and all this other stuff. And trucking is highly regulated, but there's plenty of ways around those regulations. And for good, bad, or indifferent, or whatever reason, that's just the way it is. then the problem is you got people breaker whatnot. You got people that don't need the regulation. So you got old school truckers that maybe never touched a drug in their life and never drove under the influence in their life, and they're subject to these regulations, and they feel like they're being treated unfairly because now they have to comply with all of these regulations, and they feel like, that's a little bit of overkill, for lack of better term there. But on the other hand, you have historically people that have abused drugs and suffer from addiction, and to great extensive damage that's hurt the industry, and it's hurt the layman, and so it's hurt that trucker that maybe didn't have that negative history, but because they're in the industry and they share in that industry, now they're paying for it. Why? Oh, why would this thing bring me here? Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoops. That turned fast. So, there's got to be a balance there because they got to protect people, right? High rate astronaut doing 48 state orbits. Yeah, exactly. Hey, me and my wife went to all 48 in probably less than a year driving team. We were doing lease purchase, but we were working off the spot market, so that'll do that. Right downtown Pittsburgh. Na, 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 na. No turns. That lane ends, right? I think he gotta go straight here. Oh, PNC Park, y'all. Y'all want to see PNC Park? Right across from it. Bam. Pretty cool, right? No turn on red. 6 p.m. That applies. Tattoo on your neck, Hello Kitty. Oh, you're funny. No, that's actually, well, it depends which one you're talking about. The one on the right is a memorial piece for my sister that passed away in 2016. The one on the left is just new age tattoo art, I guess. What you would call it. That's what I would call it. Right downtown. So we'll go over the importance of trucking and the recovery industry. We'll go over common challenges truckers face on the road, tips for breakdowns and recovery situations, viewer Q&A, and real life trucking stories. The reality of trucking. Not this one. What the heck? Um, what is it doing, man? This is stupid. I just went this way. All right, Garmin, you failed, bro. Garmin failed, y'all. Garmin failed. Garmin failed me. I'm going right up there where he's at. And yeah, this thing's lost. But I do know, I think it's 376 goes through up here. So I ain't lost yet. It's trying to get me lost. I ain't lost yet though. I think it's lost. Garmin's lost for sure. Ooh, I got blocking the whole intersection. You can get around there. Car's got his whole rear end out there. That was a wide turn. I feel like I'm in New York right now. So, I appreciate it, Crash Out. Appreciate that. It was a tough loss. What state I'm in? PA, Pennsylvania. I'm downtown Pittsburgh, man. Garmin, listen, me and Garmin is gonna have some issues here. What state am I from? Is Ohio. No, not picking up drugs. Delivering. Hey, I knew this turned into that. It's weird because you can't. All right, I understand why it did it now because you can't turn some of these streets. You're not even allowed to turn on them. So it takes you all the way around the block and then spits you out in their traffic pattern before you can go the way you need to go. When if you were allowed to turn, you could just turn and get where you're going. But such is not the case with Pittsburgh. I'm in Pittsburgh. Hello, sir. We're in Pittsburgh. It's popping down here, y'all. This will spit us out right on 376. So that's one good thing. You see, like the outer belts, like Columbus has 270. It doesn't really get close to downtown. Whereas here in Pittsburgh, you can jump on 279, 579, 376, and it'll take you right through downtown. Wow, right? But, I was talking about that earlier because Pittsburgh's one of the very early settlement states, and basically the city was here, the people were here, the settlements were here prior to the infrastructure. And then newer cities that came later on were developed because of infrastructure. So those places are very truck friendly. Like Las Vegas. Um, Believe it or not, for being a very populated, very urban, very dense area, it's pretty truck friendly. I mean, granted, I wouldn't want to drive my semi down Las Vegas Boulevard, but you could. You absolutely could. We're getting ready to go through Fort Pitt Tunnel. So y'all are in for a little bit of a treat there. Pittsburgh. Cool. Scotland, what's up, Scotland? Cool, man. I like it. Never been there, but I would love to go. Staying off the grid. That's cool. Taylor television stream. Oh, really? Sweet. I didn't even know that. Yeah, I was streaming earlier. I'm not hip to that service. You would have to explain more to me. That's cool. I like it. I'm gonna try to steady this up for y'all so it's not bouncing so much. You know what? I'm gonna just swap these out. It'll be quick and easy and pretty painless. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And then you won't be bouncing all over the place. Here's Fort Pitt Tunnel. If you're familiar with the Pittsburgh area and you're a driver, you know that if something happens anywhere on 376, you're going to be held up for miles and possibly hours for a long time. And especially Fort Pitt Tunnel because you've got three or four major highways, interstates, roundabouts, or outer belts, thoroughfares that funnel right into two lanes. So you got like six, seven, eight sources of traffic all going in the same direction, and they funnel right into Fort Pitt, which is only a two-lane tunnel. So I'm surprised. Like traffic's really clear right now, and I'm just gonna knock on wood and say thank God because that would once you get through there, you're pretty much good to go. That was a nice scenic route. Garmin had me sweating, y'all. I'm like, what is it doing to me? But I wasn't in any no truck zones. And now there were some tight turns, very populated, very dense area. But I wasn't on no restricted routes, so I'm not gonna look in the mouth there. So I appreciate Garmin not screwing me over. I don't appreciate the anxiety, but I'm sure they didn't set out to cause anxiety. I would hope not, at least. We're going back to Ohio. So back to the original topic of recovery and trucking. So a highly regulated industry for sure. Are there ways to circumnavigate the industry? Absolutely. That can be true of any industry. So it's not like trucking's the only industry that people get away with addiction or alcohol use when they shouldn't necessarily be doing it. But it is one that's very controversial because you know, and I don't disagree with the gentleman that made the statement that he made about somebody that would choose to use a mind altering substance and then get behind the wheel of a semi is just ignorant. But nothing that I posted said that that's what was happening. So it just came off as very judgmental and wasn't really helpful, and that's why I wanted to talk about um, addiction recovery and trucking. And fundamentally, it's a sin versus salvation issue, or at its core, for sure. But people change, right? So we're not stuck. We're not destined to be the same as we were if we're stuck in some negative behavior. We can absolutely change. And that was my thing. Like, how can you sit there and act like people aren't worth it? Everybody's worth it. And that's kind of what I was talking about yesterday. God knows everybody's worth it. People challenge that because it can be real easy to sit back and point a finger and say, well, that's against my beliefs, that's against my morals, that's against my culture, so it's wrong. In some cultures, it might be perfectly fine to use stimulants and deliver products and goods and provide a service in some cultures. If it goes against the law of the land, it's probably not. But there are countries, less developed countries, that are highly not regulated or highly underregulated, and those countries often have corrupt governments, and that's why they are the way they are. So I guess you could say tit for tat or split hairs and say, well, is it wrong because that goes against your beliefs? Maybe I think it's wrong that you choose to pick your nose and drive, or people do all kinds of weird stuff in these trucks, and I won't go into detail, but use your imagination. Um, so yeah, but it is illegal, and in the United States, for the most part, I'm pretty sure probably all over. Like when they deregulated marijuana, you still can't smoke marijuana or test positive for marijuana. I won't say smoke because you can do whatever you want. But if you test positive for marijuana and you have a CDL, you will lose your right to drive. You won't lose your CDL, but you'll have a restriction that says that you are not allowed to perform safety sensitive duties according to the FMSCA clearinghouse rules and regulations, which until recently was pretty much optional. Now, I believe, and maybe it's the end of this year that it goes into effect, but I'm pretty sure all carriers have to be compliant with the clearinghouse now. I could be wrong. Fact check me on that. Drop it in the comments. Let me know. But welcome everybody. If you're just tuning in to the live stream, I appreciate y'all joining me today. And I am J Road Trucker. I will be your announcer and driver on this journey in trucking and recovery. And as I said before, I started trucking in 2018. I had worked most of my life in construction. And although I hadn't drove truck up until that point, I've had trucking in my blood and my family for generations. Uncles drove truck, cousins, and even own their own trucking companies. So it's in my DNA. And also, addiction is in my DNA. So if you don't know, it is absolutely a disease that can be passed down hereditarily, while it can be dormant until activated. It is often a generational curse that requires attention and education to be avoided, and abstinence in most cases. Does that mean that everybody that had a parent that used or had problems with addiction will automatically become an addict? No, absolutely not. There are biological factors or sociological factors, and there are social factors or environmental factors. And we're going to cover some of the common challenges that truckers face on the road. And I will break down some tips for trucking and recovery situations, and we will do some Q&A, and hopefully we'll share some real life trucking stories. I'll definitely share some of mine. Hopefully some people will chime in the comments below and let us know your experience with addiction or trucking and or both. Everybody in this country has been affected by addiction. We just had a president that was affected by addiction. Matter of fact, he just pardoned his son from what was certain to be a long, drawn out process where he faced decades in prison for federal crimes because of addiction. They found cocaine in the White House, y'all. You think addiction doesn't affect everybody? It affects everybody. 6 degrees of separation. Think about it. And so the daily life of a trucker. What do? We get up. What I do, I get up, I brush my teeth, use the restroom, wash my face, throw some deodorant on. Get dressed. Not necessarily all in that order, but pretty closely together. And then I get my coffee going. I'll usually get warmed up and throw on some heavy coats when it's this temperature out. It was like 10 degrees this morning. It was cold, y'all. Excuse me. So did that, went out, pre-tripped my truck, I popped my hood. Everybody should do this. If you're a trucker, Maybe you don't do the extensive check every single connection, every single 101 points on a pre-trip inspection, but you kick the tires. At least check your fluids. At least check your tires. At the very minimum, and this isn't advice, do your pre-trip. Okay, because it's going to save you from breakdowns, it's going to save you from possible accidents, it's going to save you from violations. Your company will thank you, and at the end of the day, you will be glad that you get to keep your check in your pocket when you don't get those big fees for fines and waivers. I.e., I had last Monday got pulled in Michigan, and I was frustrated when I grabbed my trailer Friday. I grabbed a load that was 45,000 pounds, and these whoever's been dropping these trailers, they leave the landing gear engaged. So if you drop a 45,000 pound trailer and that landing gear is engaged, if you drop it from that high, or wherever you drop it, it'll spin that handle around and it gets caught up in the cross members in the frame, and it makes it virtually impossible to get out of there. I'm hanging on this thing 210 pounds and it's not budging. So after 20 minutes of doing that, almost 20 minutes, by the time I got my trailer hooked up, I slid my tandems and called it a day. Well, Monday I pulled out, shot up 23, up 75. As soon as I get to Michigan, I get pulled in. They red light me, pull me back around, weigh every single axle, over 3,500 pounds. They wouldn't let me slide my tandems until after they gave me a ticket. I had to wait 3 days to find out $443, I think. If you're a company driver and you got to pay a $443 ticket, chances are that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt you. That's going to hurt your family. That's going to hurt your your creditors. $440 is a lot of money. It hurt me. So keep your money in your pocket, y'all. Now, if you're over a couple 100 pounds, and I had this happen Tuesday because the place where I was loading, I gave them my lightweight, and they went ahead and loaded me 1,400 pounds heavier than what I told them, and I got pulled in again. I was over 500 on my drives and over on my steers, a couple 100 pounds. I said, well, I can slide him. He was like, well, it doesn't matter because I was over 80,000. Anything I did, I was going to be over somewhere. He was like, just get where you're going. So he cut me a break. That was cool. But I was only a couple 100 pounds over. And, you know, he probably felt bad for me because he knew I just had to pay that $440. But that's my responsibility. I picked that load up. It's my responsibility to look at that paperwork and check my weight, my load weight, and figure it out. But I have actual load weight indicators on my dashboard, and that said I was under. So now I know, just err on the side of caution. If you think your truck and trailer empty weight is 34,000, which is pretty common for a sleeper and a 53-foot dry van, tell them it's 35,000. Don't take the chance of getting an overweight ticket. So if you're a trucker, what are some of the toughest challenges you've faced recently with trucking? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. So that happened. And another challenge that I've been facing lately is trying to stay, but see, I'm short haul, so I get home every night. I'm gonna sleep in my truck, which is great. That's awesome, but it costs me money because I'm burning up fuel when I could just park and take a break instead of running the extra miles to get home every night. So there is a trade off there. And one of the challenges that I've been having, or especially was it Monday, I got stuck in a dock 3.5 hours getting unloaded, which is a pretty long time just to get unloaded. And then I went to pick up my backhaul just to find out somebody had already picked it up. Two separate loads that were going where I was going, both already shipped, which I'm supposed to get TONU for that, which is truck ordered, not used. And if you're an owner operator, you get 100% of that. So that would basically cover my deadhead mileage. And then I get to another backhaul and wait another 3.5 hours to get loaded. So, I don't know, it's a dispatch thing or carrier thing but I'm like, why can't you run me within a 14-hour period? Nobody wants to have to take a an exemption, and you want to stay within in the parameters of your FMSCA regulations and requirements. So that's a challenge that I've faced recently, and maybe you can relate to that. And that brings me to the next topic of the importance of safety and preparation. And it's important for long hauls, it's important for short hauls, it's important for local, dedicated. It doesn't matter if you're running hot shot, day cabs, sleeper cabs, dry van, reefer trailer, flatbed. Doesn't matter. Tanker, safety should always be the priority. And somebody's going to say, oh, well, you're saying that as you're doing a lot driving down the road. Yeah. Well, I'm focused on my task at hand. I have one button operation. I have a headset. I'm not breaking the law. It's not illegal to have my phone recording while I'm driving. I have 5 dash cameras recording. I got 2 dash cameras from the company recording. I got another dash camera on my GPS recording. I got all kinds of cameras recording. What do you mean it's illegal to have a camera recording while you're driving down the road? Just because it's facing me as I'm talking? I don't know. And yeah, I'm sure it's controversial. Whatever. Preparation. So, like I talked about earlier, your pre trip, periodic maintenance, preventative maintenance, post trip, mid trip. These things will save you money. They'll save your company money. They will help prevent avoidable accidents and unnecessary accidents. And they will keep you from violations. They will keep you from tickets, fines, out of service, incidents, and so much more. Just by doing your pre-trip, doing your post-trip, making sure your preventative maintenance is taken care of. And especially if you're an owner operator, If you're an owner operator, lease purchase operator, independent owner operator, every single thing you do is a business decision. Every single thing you do is a business decision. And I think that's where people go wrong, especially if you get into a lease purchase and you're running that truck like you're still a company driver. You're going to have problems. You can't spend that money like it's your paycheck when you're a lease operator. You can't spend that money like it's your paycheck when you're a lease purchase operator. You can't do that when you're an owner operator, an independent owner operator, because you have to prepare for externalities. You have to prepare for breakdowns. You have to prepare for maintenance. You have to prepare for taxes, fuel costs, insurance payments, your all of these fixed costs, all these variable costs, the overhead that it costs to run your business. And you should have an emergency fund. You should have a maintenance account. You should have a tax escrow account. And if your vehicle needs maintenance, you should have the funds to take care of that, because if you don't take care of this truck, how's it going to take care of you? Which brings me into how mechanical failures and breakdowns impact truckers. Do you know the average cost for a service call if you got to call a heavy repair shop or mobile repair business? It's about $750 minimum. Bare minimum. If they don't even touch anything, they just pulling behind your truck and you called them out there. $750. So you can imagine what mega fleets spend on maintenance a year. And they have a much lower maintenance cost and exposure than an independent owner operator, an owner operator, lease purchase operator. Because the more trucks you have, the cheaper you can, or the more efficient you can run. So less expenses, because you do get breaks on maintenance, you do get discounts on parts and labor when you're buying it in bulk. And not to mention unrealized revenue. If you're broke down, now you can't deliver that load that you already have, or you can't pick up the backhaul that you were going to pick up, or you can't pick up the load that you were on your way to pick up. So now your truck's not making money and you're hurting. Good morning. And you're hurting your clientele, you're hurting your customers. So the impacts of that on your business cannot be overstated, right? The impacts that has on your business cannot be overstated. Facts. The lost revenue, the unrealized profit, and not only you're not making money, you're spending money on maintenance, and you still have your fixed costs. You still got to pay your insurance. You still got to pay your brokerage. You still got to pay your employees. You still have to make your truck payment. All these expenses don't stop just because your truck's broke down. And your time. Time is valuable. You lose time with your family, you lose time, opportunity costs, right? Anything that you could be doing outside of work or within work that you can't do now because you're broke down, which can then create mental and emotional problems. So there's a mental and emotional toll in the trucking industry. And to bring that full circle, that then correlates to addiction and the problems that we have within the industry from addiction, right? Take care of your emotional health, take care of your mental health, and the rest will follow. You'll be able to take care of yourself, you'll be able to take care of your business. And because we're a brand, right? Even if you're a company driver, you are representing that company, and you're also representing yourself as a service. So be respectful of yourself and your company and your customers by taking care of yourself. So hey, I appreciate y'all checking out the channel, and I pray y'all have a blessed day, and I hope you got some value out of this. I'm interested, what are the toughest things that you deal with in trucking, or maybe just in your regular job? You know, some common things that we deal with are flat tires. Especially right now with this cold, these trucks hate the cold, y'all. Man, it seems like every day I got a different warning light on my truck because of the weather. That's what it comes down to. And we plug them in, we drain the air tanks, we drag the brakes if they're wet, so the brakes don't freeze up overnight while you're getting your brake in or while the truck is sitting. And we do these preventative things to try to minimize it, but you still have batteries. You still have brakes that freeze up, and you got to get out there with a 2x4 and a sledge and smack that drum, and that vibration will help break that shoe loose from the drum. Or maybe you got disc brakes, and we carry jumper cables. Hopefully we can get a jump, or maybe we got a jumper box, or maybe you park at home, or maybe you park at a terminal, so you're able to get maintenance to come get you going. Preparing for these things will save you a lot of hardships. It'll save you money, save your company money, and it'll get you home to your family faster. And you're going to save yourself the mental and emotional stress that comes along with being broke down for several hours on the side of a highway, which is very stressful, man. I see these trucks that break down in the middle of the highway and they're still sitting in them. I'm like, no way. How many times did that happen and it turned into like a massive chain reaction pile up or something like that? And there are things that we can do, the preventative maintenance stuff that'll help with that. Checking your tire pressure. If you stop to get fuel, walk around the truck, kick your tires, check your tread depth. Make sure you don't have chunks of tire missing or brake failure. Make sure you're checking your brake linings, your air hoses. Make sure you got good air. Do your brake tests. These things will save you so much time and stress and money. And that's why we have pre trips and post trips and mid trips and preventative maintenance. That's what it's there for. And you're gonna be glad you did that stuff. If you don't know, you don't know, but we do know because these stuff's happened. And historically they've happened, and if it's mechanical, guess what? It's gonna fail eventually, but you can minimize your downtime and you can minimize the amount of mechanical failure too by taking these steps, these preventative maintenance steps. And what do you do if you do break down? You put your triangles out, understanding where the triangles go. Um, Maybe you have equipment and knowledge, and you can begin to try to fix the problem yourself. Or if you know you can't fix it, that's fine. Don't sit around and hope that it miraculously starts up and you'll be on your way. Get maintenance there, get it taken care of, and get going. Get back home to your family. The longer you sit around, the more money you're losing, the more money you're costing your company, the more stress, unnecessary stress you're putting on yourself and your family because it is a lifestyle. Our family, they pay a cost too. There's a cost to everything we do. The cost of not doing something is doing something, if that makes sense. And communicate with your customers. One of the first things you should do if you break down and you're loaded is let the customer know. Now, maybe you have a dispatcher, you let dispatch know and they contact the customer. But you made a commitment to take that load. It is your responsibility to update when you're going to be late or if you're going to be late. And a lot of time that's in the rate contract. So brokers require it, customers require it, shipping managers require it, motor carriers require it, dispatchers require it. It's just good practice. Again, you're a brand, so represent that brand accordingly. And especially if you're an owner operator, independent owner operator, it's very important that you take your customers seriously. The better you treat your customers, the better your business is going to do. And that includes communicating if there is a mechanical issue, if there's going to be a delay. And it's okay if you have to call service or a recovery service for a tow. It sucks because it is a monetary loss, and nobody wants to have their truck towed. We all see those trucks out here. We're like, man, it sucks to be them. Yeah, it does. But I've also been them. It's part of the industry. Tow and recovery services is part of the industry. Addiction recovery in the trucking industry, it's part of the industry. Recognizing signs of when there's a problem, maybe with a coworker, maybe with yourself, or maybe with a complete stranger, and seeking help. Maybe you call their company and say, "Hey, I seen this driver. They were clearly intoxicated. Not trying to get anybody in trouble, but I would not be able to sleep tonight if I knew that I didn't at least call somebody to try to get this person some help." Because sometimes we get to a place where we can't help ourselves, and it takes somebody else stepping up and doing the right thing. And that's God doing for us what we can't do for ourselves. And that's not snitching, that's just being a good person. Because if there's somebody out here driving this truck intoxicated, they're putting their self at risk, they're putting the entire motoring public at risk. So don't be ashamed if you have to call their company and report that. And don't be afraid to have the conversation. Maybe you know that person personally, and maybe you're on the fence about talking to them about it. I would never be ashamed of saying, "Hey, brother, I'm worried about your drinking. It's getting out of control." In fact, I've done that with a very good friend of mine. I'm like, "Listen, man, you're starting to have legal problems. Now your career's impacted. You know, you're coming to work smelling like alcohol, hungover. I'm concerned." That's a good conversation to have. You shouldn't put that conversation off. You should have that conversation as soon as possible, because if something happens and you didn't say nothing, now you get to carry that with you for the rest of your life. And trust me, you don't want that burden. I felt like I missed an opportunity to witness to my sister when she was struggling with addiction and had a relapse because of the situation I was in. I didn't take the time and the risk and step outside of my comfort zone to witness to her. And that was the last time I seen her. And that weighs heavy on me. It still weighs heavy on me. Um, and maybe it wouldn't have mattered, but I would hate to be that person that I knew somebody was struggling and I didn't reach out for whatever reason, and then something happened and it might have been able to be prevented. Think about these mass shootings, these people that struggle with mental health, suicides, overdoses. There were missed opportunities there. I guarantee it. I've made that hard decision before to report people when I felt like they were a harm to themselves or harm to somebody else. That's not easy to do for somebody that you care about, especially when you grew up like I did, where snitches get stitches and end up in ditches. Not always easy to do, but necessary. So that's my personal experience with that. And I would love to know if you have some personal experiences with that. Drop it in the chat. Let's have a conversation, you know, because it is important to keep an open dialogue about these things. Now, I'm not saying that, and I have a little bit of a problem with this. Let's not start indoctrinating our kids with suicidal ideology because it needs to be talked about in order for them to be educated. No, that's not a kid issue. I mean, not at a certain age. Now, once you get to a certain age, I've got a daughter that's 22. I also got a daughter that's 2.5 years old. I'm not going to talk to my 2.5-year-old about the same things I would talk to my 22-year-old about, right? Just like I'm not going to talk to my 10-year-old son about the same things that I would talk to my 2.5-year-old son about. So there's a right time and a right place for everything. Now, if my 10-year-old comes to me and says, "Hey, I heard about this thing that people were talking about," and it gets brought up, then absolutely we're going to have the conversation. Now, if I happen to come across a cartoon that is aimed towards it, marketed to toddlers, and they're talking about that, guess what? My kid's not going to be watching that cartoon. Because at 2.5, you don't have, there's no reason why that would be a topic for a 2-year-old. So I had something similar to that happen recently, and I'm like, no. But I mean, it too, they probably don't understand that. But at the same time, why? Why are you exposing that to kids? So I would seriously have to question that. That's my personal experience with it. Maybe you have a different personal experience, good, bad, or indifferent, and then the trucking industry is such that it is all encompassing. We face mechanical problems, we face problems with drugs and alcohol, we face problems with mental health. We face problems with weather. Inclement weather is a serious problem in trucking. What happens in winter weather situations? How do we mitigate our exposure as owner operators or even as company drivers? We watch the weather, we pay attention to the weather, we pay attention to the forecast, and we trip plan. So if I know that I got a load that's delivering to the UP or somewhere up by the lakes where there's a higher likelihood of increased inclement winter weather, I'm going to plan accordingly, meaning I'm going to leave early. I'm going to make sure that I have emergency equipment. Our safety personnel recommends that we carry like sterno for an alternate heat source if for some reason our engine isn't working. Carry extra blankets, extra clothing, extra food. Not a bad idea, and I'm going to be doing this soon. Is I want to implement some solar panels on top of my fairing, possibly my hood, but definitely my fairing. Even if it's only a couple hundred watts, that's enough to run a very small portable heater, or at the very least, you can keep your cell phone charged. That way, you can contact emergency services, get you an Uber or a Lyft or a Greyhound, catch a flight or just watch a movie till maintenance gets there or a tow truck. So that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. And it might keep the batteries charged so they start when it's nice and cold out. And understanding that we have to decrease our speed in inclement weather situations, understanding that we have to increase our following distance and our braking reactions need to change. The style which we drive, the way we brake, the way we accelerate, the way we make lane changes, the way we take turns, curves, merging, exiting. All of these things need to be adjusted during inclement weather situations. And a lot of this is just hands on. You learn it by experience, by doing. Um, and a lot of it you can educate yourself. YouTube University, your safety department, I guarantee has training videos on inclement weather. Talk to another trucker. Drop it in the chat. Jump on the community tab and respond to some of my posts on there where I talk about this stuff. Let's have a conversation. You can email me, gardeningoutreach@gmail.com, jroadtrucker at jroadtrucker, jroadtrucker on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, jroadtrucker. I'm on X. Not hard to find. I'd love to have a conversation with you. So, there are many things to overcome in the trucking industry, whether mechanical issues, mental health, addiction. And I think that we're really limiting our empathy and what God intended for us if we have this mindset of, oh, well, if you were ever active in addiction, you shouldn't drive a truck. That's crazy, man. We have a convicted felon that's a and are you serious? You've ever sinned, if you've ever made a choice that I don't agree with or goes against my culture or my beliefs or my morals and my values, then this, that, or the other. That is a absolutely a thinking error and it does not compute. Put that into a Venn diagram and I guarantee it's an invalid argument. If this, then that. No. So your premise is wrong. There's so much wrong with that argument. And it doesn't take a college degree or a college course in thinking errors to understand that that is not a valid argument, right? A little bit of common sense will tell you that people make mistakes. We were born into sin. That happened way back in the Garden of Eden when Eve was tempted by the serpent, and then Adam followed suit. And they ate from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the scales fell off their eyes, and they could see they were naked, and they hid from God. And God said, "Why are you hiding?" And they said they're naked, and God said, "Well, wow, how do you know you're naked?" And Adam blamed it on that woman. And of course, there's the whole argument of, well, women are the root of all evil because they talked a man into sinning. And the fact of the matter is that we are all susceptible to sin without God. We can all overcome sin with God. And I'll take it a step farther. We can all enjoy an eternity in heaven by accepting Jesus and repenting from sin by grace from God through faith in Jesus. So everybody is worth it and anybody can change. I'm living proof of that. Jesus was living proof that everybody was worth it and is worth it. And God is the ultimate proof of the kind of grace that we should give other people. Whether you believe in Jesus Christ and Christianity or not, it's just a basic human decency thing. Just because your morals and values say that that's wrong or you don't agree with it, doesn't mean that that person is irreparable or not worthy of being able to go out and make money and be afforded the same opportunities that you are, because that thing that you do, because everybody sins and the laws are such a way that at any given time somebody's probably breaking some kind of weird law. Whether you accidentally sped up too fast and went 56 instead of 55, or you pulled out of your house and you were in such a hurry you forgot to put your seatbelt on and drove all the way to the school to pick your kids up, or all the way to drop them off at band practice or football practice or ballet or cheerleading or whatever. We've all broke some sort of law at some point in time. Does that mean that we could never be a truck driver? Get out of here. Well, you might say, oh, well, that's a felony. That's a misdemeanor. Guess what? You probably committed felonies too, and you don't even know it. That, again, is a basic human decency thing. Everybody deserves grace, and we are all equal in the eyes of the Lord. So if you're that person that is sitting back and saying, well, such and such did such and such, and oh my, well, shame on you. Because guess what? You're also such and such that did such and such. And oh my. So give people grace. Does that mean they lay down and be a doormat and we should let anybody do anything? No, absolutely not. That's why we have the regulations we have. If you've struggled with something, there are avenues to reparations. And if you're willing to put in the work, you can legally get back behind the seat of behind the wheel of a semi. I don't have a problem with that. Again, it's a moral dilemma. It is a moral dilemma. Morally, we can pick and choose what is right and what is wrong. Or we can listen to the truth and educate ourselves and grow in the word and grow in our relationship, our personal relationship and God, and then we can use our moral compass with the guidance of the Holy Spirit. So maybe God's telling you, well, I'm concerned about my friend because I know they're active in addiction and they're driving. Then exercise your moral compass by all means. But don't sit up on your soapbox and judge somebody else that you really don't even have the information to do so. And there's plenty of resources out there. If you're struggling with addiction, whether it be trucking, if you're struggling with mental health, for one, you can reach out to me on all the information I just gave you, all my platforms, and star 88 suicidal hotline. It's a crisis hotline. They will put you in the right direction for resources. There is no excuse in today's society in the United States that people should suffer in silence, whether it be mental health, whether it be addiction, whether it be overeating, compulsive gambling, sex addicts, so many different things that we all struggle with. does not have to go untreated because there are so many resources out there. There are so many people willing to help you. And a lot of times, the people that are doing it, they're not doing it because it pays these astronomical amounts of money. Like they're not getting paid doctor salaries. They're probably barely getting by, truth be told. They're doing it because they want to do it because that's their calling in life. It makes them feel good to help other people. So who are we to deny somebody to help us when that is literally their calling in life and they get great satisfaction out of that because they know that they're doing God's work? Accept the help that's out there. Quit using it as an excuse to stay sick and stay addicted because that's what you want to do. Or maybe you're active in addiction. And yes, addiction's a disease. You got to find a way to arrest that disease and then accept the help and then don't pick back up because once it's arrested, you do have a choice and you don't have to pick back up. So quit making excuses, accept the help that's waiting on you, and do yourself a favor. Love yourself enough to help yourself, and help yourself by allowing others to help yourself. That's your recovery resources. That's your mental health resources. That's your suicidal ideology. I'm a homicidal. I'm suicidal thoughts type of person. Not me personally. Have I? Yes. Am I? No. Plenty of help out there if you want it. That's the point. And if you're not accepting the help that is out there, I have to strongly question whether or not you're ready. And maybe you're not. And if you're not, then absolutely you should not be driving a truck. 100% you have no business behind the wheel of the truck if you're not ready to do something about your addiction. Because you're a hazard to yourself and you're a hazard to everybody else. And you don't have the right to be a hazard to everybody else. God gave you free will. So I can't tell you don't have the right to be a hazard to yourself, although I would argue that you don't because Jesus died for you. And yes, I'm in a semi truck. And one of the greatest offenses that we can do to another person, if somebody gives their life to save your life, the least you can do is live it. And that is what God did. Hey, Kenton, Ohio. I got family in Kenton, Ohio. So if somebody gives their life to save your life, the least you can do is live it. I answered you, Kenton. We all know you do all the time. Okay. So there are resources out there. You have the Adam H, which is addiction and mental health services. You have 988, which is crisis and suicide hotline. You also have the CDC, which is a government entity, which is a Center for Disease Control, which will also help with addiction, believe it or not. And there are a bunch of other ones, right? There's the National Institute for Addiction. There's chemical dependency, CDAC, or something like that, Chemical Dependency Association, counselors. There's all kinds of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, L, M, N, O, G, X, Y, Q, R, T, Z, Y, and W, O, and P. And if you do not speak English, I apologize for just completely ruining any chances that you had. questions about addiction? Are there any questions, regulations in trucking? Do you have problems with your license because of addiction and you're curious if you can get into trucking? Do you have problems with your license, period, and you're curious if you can get into trucking? Are you interested in getting into trucking and you don't know where to start? I can help you. I promise you I can help you. Are you new to driving truck? You got your CDL and there are answers that you need. There are informations that you seek. I can help you. Let me know. Reach out to me on here. Reach out to me, J Road Trucker at J Road Trucker on YouTube. Search J Road Trucker on Facebook. You'll find my pages. You'll find my profiles. They're all public. Gardening outreach at gmail.com. Working on a new website. Gardeningoutreach.com is down right now. We're rethinking God's Garden. The business is not operational at this time. So I'll be working on a new website more than likely, changing the business model slightly. Same concept, ministry, trucking, helping people, loving people when they don't love themselves necessarily. Purpose. What is purpose? So if you want information about trucking, let me know. If you want information about also J Road Trucker on X, J Road Trucker on TikTok, J Road Trucker on Instagram, Telegram, what else? WhatsApp, Snapchat, J Road Trucker. I'm all over. Not hard to find. Just you could probably actually Google J Road Trucker and it'll point you in the right direction. And search. You can do a business search too. It is a legal business. It is my trucking company, J Road Trucker, and I do get some looks about that, but that's fine. So J Row is a nickname that my sister gave me a very long time ago, and it's stuck ever since. And I hold it near and dear because my sister is no longer here, so I will continue to hold it near and dear. So J Row Trucker, get it? Got it? Good. And I want to encourage people to talk about their struggles with addiction. I want to encourage you, if you're struggling with mental health, to talk about it. We don't talk about it. We're giving these things power. We're giving them control in our life. Um, talk about it. Get it out there. Let's discuss it. That help take the sting away, and it'll take away a lot of the stigma too. Because when that guy said that, hopefully you're not one of those truckers that give truckers a bad name. That's a stigma. If I'm sharing and I'm in recovery, how is that giving truckers a bad name? So you'd rather me not be in recovery? I mean, you can't make a zebra change its stripes. I can't go back in my past and take away all the addiction that I dealt with. I wish I could. That would be like going back and telling Eve not to eat the apple and not to talk Adam into eating the apple. We can't do that. What's done is done. It is finished. Jesus came down off of that cross, so there is salvation. If you convince me that anyone not worth it, because they are worth it, and you're worth it. Are worth it, and you're worth it. And maybe nobody's told you today that they love